if you were listening to this podcast right now and you bring a buyer for 45 White Oak, I will happily write a nice fat check to you. Modern Craftsman podcast today is not what I was thinking we were going to get into, but Tyler texted me saying, hey, you're on the hot seat today. And I literally got up and I said, I have to go take a piss and I need an energy drink if I'm going to be on the hot seat. So I did get my energy drink, which we are not sponsored by Neutronic, but maybe we will be. And Tyler recognized that when we were at the International Builder Show just a few weeks ago, I think there was 133 of you guys had asked me if White Oak had sold when we stepped on the floor within 5 minutes. And my answer was no. But today, we're going to answer all of those questions that you guys had about 45 White Oak and some that Tyler perfectly curated to peel the curtain back a little more than I truthfully was expecting. And we'll talk about the stuff that is comfortable and uncomfortable.
Yeah, a little change of pace for today. You know, I was with Nick at IBS and I got tired of listening to him answer the questions. So we're going to answer all the questions here for you. And I think the goal for me here would just be to give all of you some insight as to really the motivation behind this project entirely on many different levels, and just get a glimpse into what this looks like and what the goal is and really what the big picture is here. So hopefully it answers all those questions and more. And if you have more questions or something more specific, you can always email us at hello@moderncraftsman.co and we'll answer them there.
And before we say a message to our sponsors, guys, make sure you sign up for the newsletter, moderncraftsman.co. This is where all of the behind the scenes stuff from the show is being shared. And we got some really exciting stuff that we're launching, not to mention all of the events that we're going to be part of in 2026. We're sharing all of that first just to our subscribers, so you do need to sign up. And with that being said, big thanks to our sponsor, Andersen Windows. Dude, I know you haven't put your windows in yet, but the other day we were upstairs and all we saw was blue lights outside of our house. Come to find out, there was a situation happening out front.
City life.
That when we opened the windows we could hear, but when we closed them we could not. And we installed, I've said it before, but we installed the Andersen A Series double hung, and I mean, dude, how quiet they are is so nice. Especially like, yeah, you're joking, city life. Like, it's exactly why I wanted it. Like, yeah. Performance is great. Like, we'll make it the house high performance, but how quiet it is, and we're on a main road. Like, yeah. It's and then you got cops and ambulances out front. Like, whole mess out there. But yeah, we were nice and comfortable, and like nothing was ever going on.
It's funny that you say that. I lived in the city for a handful of years, and then when I rented in the suburbs, we had a train relatively close by, and it was like the noise was something you have to get used to. Mm-hmm. But that's nice to know that you no longer have to get used to that. You can shut your Andersen windows and not have to be dealing with that headache, because it's definitely loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's exciting. Ours have not gone in, but I'm very close to breaking ground here. So my Andersen windows will be going in. We'll be documenting that and much more. So definitely stay tuned.
By the way, I also did on the NS Builders YouTube, I toured the Oceanside factory, which made all the windows for our Echo Pond project. So if you want to see that factory, super cool factory, like very small group of craftsmen and craftspeople that put all these windows together for Echo Pond. But we did a full tour on that. It's on our YouTube channel, and you can see what goes into making the lift slab product. But AndersenWindows.com, Andersen with a S-E-N at the end. Yeah, big thanks to our sponsor, Harnish Workwear, as well. Dude, I gotta admit, I'm not wearing the sweatshirt or the pants anymore because
it's like 80 degrees out right now.
66 degrees, man.
Yeah.
But I am rocking the t-shirts, and I will say this I over and over and over, guys. If you do not have company t-shirts, or if you do and they fit like shit, connect with Alex and the guys at Harnish Workwear and get their co-branded shirts. They are the nicest t-shirt that you can get that's on the market, and super easy to work with. He can help you if you don't have branding. He can help you with branding. If you do have branding, get him the file. He'll get that thing mocked up, turned around, and then you can get some nice work shirts as the spring here rolls in on the East Coast, and you guys, we're in Arizona and stuff. You guys are already in tank tops or something like that. But
we got 83 degrees here today.
What?
Yeah, and we got Tuesday of next week 37.
Yeah,
A little bit of. So we'll be back in our harness pants and sweatshirts shortly. Spring is not officially here, just a small glimpse of it.
Well, check them out, harnishworkwear.com. You can get hooked up with some killer workwear for the spring.
Yeah, so I had a lot of meetings today, and like too many. And I went to go do podcast prep, and I was trying to do other stuff, and I'm like, I'm just not going to be able to put the necessary time into really working my way through this. And I was thinking, I was looking at JLC coming up and thinking back to IBS, and I was thinking about how many questions you were getting about White Oak. And I was like, it's been a long time and we've discussed it, but maybe we should answer some of those questions here and have a White Oak episode.
All right.
I kind of want to cover all of the bases. And if there's stuff you don't want to talk about, obviously we won't talk about it, but I feel like you've been a pretty much an open book from the get-go. Mm-hmm. So I figured we could answer all the questions here now. Next time we go to a trade show, everyone doesn't have to ask you a million questions about it. And we'll be like, just listen to the podcast. Done deal.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with the first question that we got, or I got. It's not sold yet.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
It seemed everyone wants to know, and I'm not even sure that it was completed when we were at IBS. Close.
No, it's very close, yeah.
All right. So for the people who are not familiar with this project,
sure.
What's the elevator pitch? What is White Oak? Where is it? Where's the project right now? Just a general basis of what this project has been for you.
I'll skip the elevator pitch because I think I need that more scripted, but it's a $12.25 million spec home. Essentially, it is 7,200 square feet of living space that includes the outdoor pavilions. It is essentially passive house built or passive house inspired. I can't say it's passive house built because it's not certified, but ultra high performance, really ultra high end detail. But I did it really to satisfy the need to build the type of projects that I want to build, and basically looked at this as an opportunity for us to prove what we can do in a marketplace. I'm doing it in what would be considered a pretty risky way because it's on spec. I need to sell it. There's a tremendous amount of money on the line here. And the longer it doesn't sell, the more money it costs and the less money that we potentially make. But I look at this as, our opportunity for the next decade of work, and really use it as my biggest to date investment into marketing.
So essentially it's a lot of people are asking, how do I get to the level of jobs that I want to be doing? And our answer, or at least my answer, is concede a little bit on each job, right? Implement or integrate one detail that you're going to be able to document, market, photograph. Yes. You're basically doing that with an entire house.
Yes. This is like, let me just do every detail. And that's, I can't even joke about that because there's been times where like, all right, we'll just scale back and we won't do this. And it's literally been a conversation the next day, like, no, just do it. And we committed to doing everything the exact way that we set out to do it. And we literally made no compromise. Like, every piece of door hardware is custom made. We didn't intend to do that, but it was a better decision for the end result. It cost way more money, way more than we expected. We're, way over the budget that we initially started with. In some ways, you know, this isn't, great advice, but like in some ways we probably would have never been able to pull this off if we had known what it was going to cost to begin with.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it, which I think, until it sells, like I can't really say, hey, like it all worked out, right? But yes, it is exactly your advice of like conceding a little to showcase something that you can then market and kind of work your way up. And I've done that for the last decade in business. I've leveraged marketing, to I think its fullest extent that I could, and brought me to this point of like, let's build something that is exactly what we want to build, bring it to market and sell it, but also document the entire journey, document the entire build, document everything about it, market it, use it for marketing. And, in the 2 years that it's been under construction has opened up pretty insane relationships with people because, there's been hundreds and hundreds of people that have been through that house since the time we started to today. And everyone from like, literally billion, like, I didn't know a single billionaire. I'm not trying to flex here. I didn't know a single billion. I couldn't name one person that I knew that was worth $1 billion. And now it's like through this, I've been introduced to, a half a dozen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's like,
Which
hey,
is something that would be hard, like going into this, maybe.
like, why would they have any reason to meet me?
Yeah. And like maybe you did foresee that happening, but I don't think that was the basis for you tackling like
No.
to explain it to the listener, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception of this has always been that nobody is building like this in your market, and you believe that people would invest in something like this if it were out there.
And that's the risk.
Yeah. So you basically said, I'm going to put this to market to prove that people want these type of homes.
Right. And done. Because like part of the bet was we had a lot of clients, in the last couple of years want to build a house, couldn't find what they wanted, and ended up just being fatigued with the process and just buying a spec home.
Yeah.
And the specs were just junk.
Yep.
I literally had someone walk the house a couple, like 2 months ago, and he's, what I would consider a potential buyer or someone that's interested in and has the capabilities of buying this home. And he had previously bought a spec home because just timing. He's like, I didn't want to go through the process of building. I'm like, this is who this is for. This is someone that would love to build a custom home, but doesn't trust the process, doesn't want to go through a 3-year process. Like they know building is a headache. This is just done. Like this is as if you wanted to build a custom home, but now it's just sitting here ready for you to buy. Going back to your point, this podcast being the number one reason why I've been able to talk to so many builders, but I've also reached out to some guys that I look up to that haven't been on the podcast, and and everyone had the same advice when I was like, I need to get into a different market. Like we are trapped in this type of clientele. We are really trying to elevate that clientele simply for the reason because we want to build really, architect led, elaborate single family homes. Like that it's just what we want to do.
Is the more contemporary design a part of that, because you're in Boston, you're in New England, which is typically a more traditional architecture?
We will always build traditional, and I do, like, we're building a home right now, the Mansard project with Sotil. Like that is way more traditional. Like there'll be some modern elements, but it'll be very traditional inside, and I love that home. Like I think that design is really well done. I gravitate towards more of the modern, and I wouldn't even call it contemporary, but I gravitate more towards like this Danish inspired modern interior and even exterior. So that, that's also a risk, right? Because like we are in a otherwise very traditional, architecture, community. So when the outside was being designed, like Vincent, designed it, but he took a lot of that into consideration where it's like it can't be this like glass cube house. It has to feel as though it's familiar and respectful to its surroundings. And I believe it is. It's hard to see. I will say, like, every single person that's ever been to the house has said the same thing, is that in person it is so different. It has a much bigger street presence than
Yeah, I
they
mean, how much do
expected.
you think that the lot has to do with that? Because like take the house away and situate any home on that lot where it's located, and I feel it would have a commanding presence.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, I don't think the existing house had a commanding presence.
Not just the house alone, but the way
Oh,
that
right.
it's situated on the lot. Even if you were to put a different structure on there,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
believe that it would still have an impact. Now,
Yes.
couple that with the type of house that you all designed and built, I think that it has an even bigger impact.
Yeah. But going back to what, like, these conversations, I'm like, I want to get to this level. I want to be building these type of homes. And a few of them just had no, like, wasn't familiar with what I did. They didn't know what I've done with marketing. They didn't know what I've built to date. They were just giving their advice on how they had done it. And one of them was, told me this story. He's like, listen, Nick, one of the things I did, and it changed the entire course of my career, like this one project. And it was, I wanted to do more architectural projects, and I went to the architect and I said, listen, I want the opportunity to do this job. I'm not discounting my price. I am investing into the future of my business. So I'm going to do this project at a reduced fee. He's like, I just did it literally for my cost plus overhead. Zero profit on this job. And that's not me giving a discount to the client. It is me taking that money and investing it into my future.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can cut it. You can argue and be like, that's the same thing. It's like, sure, but he's looking at it as this is an investment in order to get this project. Like, hey, I'm paying you $1 million. Let me do this job. And he said, and they were really concerned. They were like, well, if this doesn't go well, and he was like, if it doesn't go well, fire me. That's like, period. And I had another builder, same exact thing. He goes, yeah, I went and I said, hey, give me a shot at this job. The moment I slip up, fire me, and I will owner rep the job for free. And he goes, and we nailed it. We did a great job. The client, was ecstatic, and we've built for him numerous times since, and it changed the whole course of my career. And I had told both of them, and I said, I think that's what I'm doing here with the spec, is that I built exactly what I want. I'm taking all the risk. I've raised all this money. I have investors that are at risk, but ultimately, like, I owe every one of them the money that I borrowed. But on one hand, the hardest thing I think was just to build the house. We've done that and we've completed. The house is done. The now it's, the stressful part is selling it as quickly as we can. But the hard part's done. We've built it. We've built it. The construction is there. The details are there. 180 people walked through that house 2 weeks ago, and every one of them was like, I feel like I'm in a museum.
Is this what you anticipated would happen with documenting this entire project? Did you feel that coming closer to completion, it'd be like, all right, now the hard part's done, I just sell it and wipe my hands and on to the next thing, or is it harder at this point than you anticipated?
Yeah, I guess to answer that, like, straightforward, I would say yes. I feel like it's a little bit harder than I expected. I had expected to have this build up, and then when we were done, people kind of come flooding, like, hey, I want it.
Yeah.
And we did have a couple people that had followed the build. One of them was a gentleman that came and toured the house 3 times, and communicated like that he wanted to put an offer in, and kind of and then end up ghosting. Like, and who knows whether he was serious or not. But I felt as though I expected a little bit more in terms of like potential buyers. Now, what I what I think I underestimated was just how many people were actually following it and knew about it
Yeah.
and just simply didn't have someone to introduce it to. And so going back to what I've been doing since I've been building it, I have been accumulating a list of people that get an email about the project on a pretty regular basis. And as we got closer to completion, those emails started getting a little bit more direct and actual photos of it being complete. And today an email went out with our first completed video part of a video series that we're doing on like completed spaces. And so that email list is probably 1,200 people that get an email on a regular basis. And those are all, I would say the majority of them are local.
Yeah.
So they're people in our market, they're brokers, real estate agents, investors, architects, designers, past clients, potential client, like anyone that's in that realm that I felt as though they should see the house. And then we hosted a broker open, which we had, I think, 100 people show up at, and then we had an open house that we had about 80 people show up at. So there is the interest, and there's a lot of people that know it. Meg is listing it.
Yeah.
So she's getting people reaching out like, hey, I've heard like insane things about this house. I want to come see it. And most of them, like, I don't have a buyer right now, but I'd love to still come see it if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then other than that, it's like, obviously the social, like in the last 30 days, well, no, maybe more than that, 45 days, I took full control back over on my social and had a commitment that I made to myself that I would grow my social media like bigger than it has been growing over the last decade. And so I committed to like basically like how I was going to do that, and part of that was making sure that we were hitting social for 45 White Oak every single day.
Yeah.
So it's really been everything. It's meeting people at the gym, literally, like guys that are in investment banking, guys that are, CEOs, like, that's part of the reason why I go to a nice gym is I was like, I want to be around people that are like, that are in that kind of circle that value like nice things. And there's been a handful of people I've met there. Some of them have come and seen the house. They've introduced it to their networks. I'm pretty relentless with anyone I speak to where it's like, hey, this is what I got. I don't need someone that I don't need you to say, hey, this person's going to buy the house. But if you know someone that's kind of in that financial bracket, I'd love to just show them the house.
It's tough because so many people look at the price of a home and they don't see anything outside of that.
Yeah.
And relative to other things that people spend money on when they have that much money, it's a big number, but there's things that cost considerably more for what you're actually getting back out of it. But with regard to that, where'd the number come from? Was it always that? Did it change?
No. It was, we intended to be much less than that, and then it just evolved in terms of cost. So, I mean, truthfully, the price is set at kind of where it needs to be successful. Meaning, like, to be straightforward, I'm not looking to make a huge profit on this project.
Yeah.
And if we went backwards, like if you had reached out to me and said, I want to build this house, that cost, would have been with because we paid $2 million or 1.9 for the lot, without the lot would have cost 13 million to build, like as a custom with management and supervision and overhead and profit. So, you would have been into that for a $15 million price point. The number just evolved in terms of like once we knew what our total costs were and what it was going to cost us for all our financing and carrying costs, and then just enough on top that basically paid us back for the time that we've put into the project, and that
Where
was it.
where do you think where did the money that surprised you the most go? Or was it just
Cost.
everything? Yeah. Like was it just everything went up a little bit, or was it just this is something that we just didn't anticipate and like this is responsible for X amount of our budget?
The cladding took way longer. The
Yeah.
cladding took 50 weeks, 50.
So a year.
From WRB, 5 inches of insulation, 3 inches of rain screen, brick tile, stainless steel fins. I expected that to be like 3 or 4 months worth of work.
Is that something that you feel you're conceding? Because ultimately, like, what's the return on that for an investor, somebody buying that house? Like, is that one of those numbers where it's like, yeah, we're not necessarily looking to make a ton of margin on this, more so cover our costs? Like, if you
It
look at
would,
the big budget of this house and it's like sub this cladding for something else, obviously totally different house, but like that seems like 50 weeks on the exterior of a building seems like something that would be very hard to capture.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, like it is, the cost is what it is, and that's included in our overall cost. So it's there. From a value perspective, I don't, you know, we're not looking at it from the cost at that point. From a buyer's perspective, they're asking what the cladding is, and it's a brick that has no mortar and can withstand hundreds of years of being installed exactly as it is,
Yeah.
with no maintenance. It just took a long time. There's a lot of really intricate details that, you know, despite being figured out in the drawings, still took a lot of consideration. The roof is a bastard hip, so every single hip is a different
Yeah.
angle, and then we're mitering the brick, and they're shingles. So now you're compound mitering them against the stainless steel fin. You have all these sheet metal details that wrap into like gutter profiles. There was a lot of intricacy around that. Second to that would be the interior woodwork and plaster.
I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but on
Sure.
I don't think I looked at those miters. Did the courses line up with that, being that you have two compound miters on different? Okay, I was just
No,
curious.
and they don't need to, like, the someone had said like, oh, it's
I
sucks
just didn't know if you were like trimming them as well, like to get the courses to line up and be like, yeah, that's
No, and
also.
even on the inside with the skylight, because it's the skylight has the shingle in a reverse flare, so
Yeah.
it's hung upside down, and they don't line there either. But you have the fin, which creates the definitive
Yeah.
separation. It's a very handmade, like undulating
Yeah.
surface where we just didn't find that we didn't feel as though that was an important.
Well, it's an impossibility. You'd have to get something made a different size.
Yeah, which they do, and like there's there's six ridge caps, and when you order the ridge caps, you literally have to sketch them, dimension them exactly down like in millimeters because they're coming from Denmark, and there was some other like weird request. Like I don't know if I had to fax that over to them or instead of email. I don't know, but it was like they had to be drawn and then go through like, hey, I'm gonna make whatever you draw, and so they did.
What was there anything that you feel in hindsight as far as the money spent that you would either take a different approach, a different route, or say, you know what, this just wasn't worth the amount of time here? Like, all right, we're going to build White Oak Part 2.
Yeah, I really don't think that there's anything on that build. Like if someone asked me to build the exact same thing again, that I would say, okay, but we're not going to do this thing.
Yeah.
I would say that I would have approached the cladding differently.
Yeah. Which is the shame of like what you're doing is that not only generally are you speaking, it's every project is ground zero. You have zero experience with it, but you're more than likely not going to get a second experience
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
So it's like you're investing so much in the learning curve, and then by the time you finish it, you understand it, and you'll never do it again.
there's nothing else in that build that I look at and say, I wish I had done it differently.
Yeah. How about from an efficiency perspective? Do you think you could build it faster?
Yeah, I do. When you're doing something on spec and there's a bank involved or even private money involved, liquidity, plays a big role into how much work you can put in place.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, if we had a set budget or if we had stuck to the budget, it would have been easier to maintain efficiency. When we started going over budget, it was much more difficult. So, that's number one. And number two is just like everything that we learned, there was just a lot of inefficiencies in like, how do we actually execute some of these details? It's just a product of how some of these details were actually detailed. Like the plaster, I think they were there from the first day to like total completion. This wasn't every single day, but they were there for 8 months. And in and out because of sequencing and like, hey, this this corner has to be plastered. Then I need to put my cabinet in. Then you can stop bead. Then you can finish the plaster. It was like that stuff.
Yeah. There's just
So
like the systems aren't there.
yeah, and it just and that's why when you look at some of these details, it's just like, how the fuck did you like? Does that even work? And it's like, oh well, you had to have everyone do a little bit at a time, and then eventually it shows up like this.
And I mean, that, to be honest, that's why most people don't do those type of things. I look at even for like, if you want to simplify it to something that most, well, maybe not even most, but a lot of people can relate to it. It's sand and finish in place floors. And do you want to install raw flooring and then sand it and then finish it and then protect it and then put your trim in and then paint and then it, like, the sequencing there is so difficult where it's like we could literally build this whole house, put all the trim in, spray everything, and put pre-finished flooring in afterwards, and it is such a huge time saver. Not just in the work done, but the sequencing and the protecting and the back and forth. And it's like, what is that worth it to the general buyer at the end of the day? Where like you look at the two products and maybe they're close enough for you and you don't realize that it took 30% more time to do finish in place flooring.
We prefabbed all the framing on that house. While we were putting the foundation in, the whole house was framed. And then in 6 weeks, the entire house was dried in. Windows showed up because they were 20 weeks and we ordered them 20 weeks prior. And then we have a full envelope totally dried in. And think about like how efficient that is, but then you're still 2 years of construction.
You're because 2 years of siding.
A year, bro. Even those efficiencies, it's like, yeah, we made up time with that, but the amount of finish and intricate work that went into it, still required work. Like all of the white oak in that entire house is pre-finished. We went to Germany. We were in the millwork shop. We were sitting there detailing how the box beams were going to ship flat and then they would go back together. All we had to do is snap them together and slide them up. It took 3 guys 1 day to put 1 beam up because of the insane tolerances. Mm-hmm. There wasn't room for error. How many hours do you think they spent plastering that house?
You said 8 months. How many guys?
Well, I'm not going to do the math for
let's
you.
Say
just throw it. Like, how many hours do you think?
6,000.
4,100.
It's a lot.
It's nuts.
That's like 2 years of full-time work. Just go and plaster for 2 years.
Or 2 guys for a year.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a lot.
That's crazy. Yeah.
No thanks.
I actually wonder if we use Procore now. I wonder if I can pull, because that tracks how many people and hours they work. Yeah. There's got to be a report that I can pull that tells me how many man hours we spent on this whole build.
I'm sure
that would be cool.
Yeah, something silly.
That'd be something that's a good clickbaity thing.
Yeah. We talk a lot about pre-construction and involving design early, and this is the type of project where obviously that's not just a suggestion, it's mandatory, it's required. What would you do differently with the design process and bringing Vincent in and just involving architects, designers from the outset that
Differently.
like differently that you learned going through this process.
Here's actually an interesting perspective because I have a deeper respect for why clients just want to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I don't want to get through the whole pre-construction. Let's just start construction. Like, yeah, man, like you got a mortgage you're paying every month. Like every day that you're not working is just like costing you money. So I could understand that. I will say that I can confidently say that if we had delayed starting construction and continued to work through pre-construction, that I think we would have either finished it exactly the same amount of time or faster.
Yeah.
And that was really just a product of, well, there's a couple things. Like number one, you know, Vincent and his team looked at this as an opportunity to really help grow the relationship between us, but also just his relationship with architecture, you know, in the world, because they do projects all over the world. But this was an opportunity where it's like, this is the caliber of project Of Possible wants to be known for. Thank God that Vincent hopped on the horse and was like, dude, let's do this. We're going to do this together and change the world. Well, you know, to be corny, but like, that was a mutual agreement. He got paid for some of the work he put into it. He way over delivered,
Yeah.
and was part of that process all the way to the finish line. That part is why that project ended up so good, because it was as, I'm trying to think of an example, but we had a Slack channel, and it would be as simple as like Patrick being on site saying, hey, here's one. Hey, Vince, we are laying out the brick in the entryway. I can either align the edge of the brick with the edge of the reglet, or I can align it with the opposite side of the reglet, so it's on the edge of the drywall. On the drawings, it's just a line.
Yeah.
And Vince is like, hey, let's align it with this, because then when you pull it across, it'll hit this corner and it'll look like it was down to those details that were still being considered, and that's what made the difference.
Do you think that it's possible to do a project like that without concessions on a lot of the team's behalves? Like it in my experience, so many of those jobs, if you want to get to that level, it's people absolutely loving what they're doing so much that they are, you know, it's not, if it's 10 hours, it's 8 hours for them, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're not necessarily looking to capture every single hour. They're just so immersed and enveloped and in love with that project that, yeah, it's like a passion project.
Yeah. And I think I want to be careful in doing that, because I think I wouldn't have been able to get through this project if it weren't for the trades and the vendors that, you know, stuck their neck out, and you know, and some of these guys stuck their neck out farther than I am even like I was even comfortable with. And I was just like, are you sure you're good? Like, we are pushing this way beyond what our agreement was. And they're like, dude, like I believe in this project. Like, this is good for all of us. Like, let's just keep going. We'll figure it out. And that was like, those moments were the times I'd have chills on site. But like, this is crazy, man. Like, everyone sees this as like, here's my like everyone looks at this as a canvas to show their best work. Had a carpenter, he was putting up the cladding on the garage door, and he pulled me aside. He goes, Nick, I just want to thank you for actually having us on this job and letting us actually do a good fucking job. And he's like, I've been doing this a really long time, and it's been a very long time since I showed up to work, and I was excited about the fact that I get to just do my absolute best and not be told, do it faster, do it less expensive. That was just the morale on site, that everyone believed in that.
Do you think that's like realistic in the real world? Is that a thing?
No, I think it's definitely a thing. Where I was going with that is, I think that people need to make a living and should be paid well for the work that they do. But I think the difference between a normal project and a project like this is that they're making money. They're getting paid. Like, everyone's getting paid. You know, they're making a good living. but those extra hours that might have been like lunchtime or extra hours at home when it's like, I should be shutting it off, but now I'm researching how to go back to 45 White Oak tomorrow and
Yeah.
do something better. Like those are the incremental additions that when you compound that across a couple hundred people, like you actually see this difference in the end result.
I 100% agree with that and feel that if you want to get the best out of people, you have to give them the opportunity to be able to do cool stuff. You treat them well, pay them well, but I think that the difference between good and great often is giving somebody that freedom or that autonomy, or just an opportunity to be able to really push their limits. And the people that are on board with that, that I think creates a world of difference in their life, their work life, in the projects. I wonder, like, it seems as though so many aspects of this project are you testing a market, not necessarily just with the numbers and the size and the specs and the comps and the type of work, but also just the environment that we're putting employees and subcontractors and designers and engineers in, where it's like, is that a realistic opportunity? Like, are they going to get another one of these opportunities? Like, do you feel if you landed this project with a client that it's going to be the same type of do what's best, take your time, you'll get paid for it, no shortcuts? Or are we always going to have to be dealing with that in some way, shape, or form?
Well, I don't think it's an on or off switch. I don't think like you're just like, you don't go back. There's a handful of trades that I can think of right off the top of my head where they were on my job doing really cool shit. And then I watch like some of their Instagram stories or like some of the other projects that they go and do, and they're not as cool.
Yeah.
And but like one specifically last week, I saw he started a new project and it was super fucking cool. And it was like, I'm not taking credit for that, but I know that because like firsthand, there's a lot of trades that we work with where it's like they were stuck doing the normal shit day in and day out. And then you give them this opportunity to come in and do really cool stuff. And then all of a sudden it opens up the world of like, hey, it's, we, especially through our promotion and marketing, where it's like, hey, you should call this guy. Like he just did 45 White Oak. Oh my God, I know that project. Yeah. If he can do it there, like he can do it for us. So I think it really does kind of open the opportunity for anyone that wants to take the opportunity to go and do better work. And that's what that is one of the things I love so much about it. And I love, and I truly love showcasing that and showcasing the trades and the products and the vendors, because ultimately they're what is helping us achieve these things.
Yeah. What about like getting down to the details of this project? That there's so many. It's the type of house or the type of project that's just made up of so many details. Like we discussed earlier, it's not just one or two; it's the entire house. But if there were a handful of things that you're most proud of, or that you'd want to showcase, or it's like, hey, all said and done, somebody came to us and they asked us to showcase 6 details that we integrated into this build, what do you think they'd be?
6?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be 6. It could be like your top handful. Like when you look at this project, or if this is the stepping stone for your career, like what are you basing that off of?
I'm gonna rattle off a handful, in no particular order, and I know I'll forget things. I feel like I'm on the stage for the Grammys right now, trying to thank everyone. The stone details are pretty incredible. It's something that we point out a lot when I'm walking people through. I actually found out 2 days ago that the stone fabricator, we'll say, politely appreciated how far he was pushed with his capabilities on this project. I definitely the white oak, Madeira really crushed it. Some of those boards are 18 inches wide, 28 feet long. Really, really incredible. Obviously the plaster. I think the plaster is like without a doubt one of the most impressive things there, just with the curves, the flatness, the reveals, the trimless features. Obviously, the millwork. Ken built every single piece of millwork in that house, and there's a lot of custom pieces there. And the skylight and the flared shingle underneath the skylight, the floor to ceiling glass, and how we buried all of the frames so it's truly, truly flush.
If you understand how hard it is to execute one detail,
Mhm.
multiply that times 5,000, and then
Yeah.
all of them need to perform and behave and
Yeah.
interact correctly. Like the amount of headspace that must take up and what it would require is insane to think about.
I'm going to plug this because go to NS Builders YouTube. There's a staircase video. It says, I'm sorry, Stairway 45 Wood Oak. It is the first video that we've put out that is a fully produced cinematic film about the process in building that staircase. And we're doing that throughout the entire house. And in doing that, it's kind of what you're getting at is like understanding one detail, but then you compound it and realize just how many things went into it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the videos that we just shot was the primary bathroom. And we talk about the complexities of we have a 48-inch by 10-foot tall piece of glass in that bathroom. Guess what couldn't fit unless we put it in before we plastered the walls? So that glass was ordered and put in before it was supposed to actually be there. And then you look at it and there's no hardware. And it's not even just no hardware on the floor and the wall, which, you know, is difficult enough to do, but it also is buried up in the ceiling. So it's literally captured on three sides with no visible hardware.
So you better not break that or else it's going to be multiple pieces going back
No,
in.
and my kid and the plumber, full speed,
Ran into it.
ran into it.
Oh God.
And being, you know, 10 feet tall, like it doesn't just not move.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like we might have to like put some frosted film like at eye level.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what is that? It was like this, it looked like a 3-inch circle of water. And
That's a
and
forehead.
they were like, yeah, that's someone's forehead.
What people walking through the house, what do you feel that they're noticing most, or what has their reaction been that stands out to them?
They a pretty consistent comment was that they felt like they were walking through a museum.
Mm-hmm.
The home was big, but didn't feel too big.
Yeah.
It was quiet. When they were inside, they literally didn't know where they were in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were like, I feel like I could be in Vermont. And it's not a big lot. It's 0.6 acres. You can see the neighbors, and we had to be careful with how we laid out windows for privacy and what you were looking at.
I think that your goal as a designer, your goal as a builder would be to create this very cohesive project that everything feels right, it looks right, and that you're not picking apart certain aspects of the home. And to be able to really combine that many details into the space and have people who may or may not have any idea of the construction world, what went into making that, but for that experience to be this synergistic, cohesive, like totalitarian experience and not one off, or yeah, like the kitchen's amazing, but the bedrooms aren't, or like we really like the staircase, but like is really
That was
cool.
really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's,
like that,
it's neat to see that actually come to fruition, and then to hear that based on the experience of people.
yeah, and there were actually moments and details that even of possible kind of scale back on some of the secondary bedrooms at one point that I remember having a conversation. I said, hey, what's, you know, the actual sinks in the bathrooms for bedroom 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I said, hey, why are these noted as undermounts? And he's like, oh, we just figured we'd, you know, save there and do fabricated sinks everywhere else. I said, I'm just going to fabricate them all.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I don't want to do an undermount sink in these bedrooms. So, you know, you go in those bedrooms, 12-foot ceilings, white oak on the ceiling, same HVAC trim details, same like fully fabricated stone vanities, same, you know, glass details. We never, quite literally the only thing we quote unquote scaled back on was that in the secondary bedrooms I painted the walls a color that matched the plaster.
Yeah.
And my thought was like those rooms, like they changed, like there's a lot more like changeover in secondary bedrooms from offices to kids bedrooms to, you know, adult bedrooms, where I just felt as though those rooms probably could be, you know, better served as painted.
And they look better in matte than satin, right?
Yes. Guys, I mistakenly approved a satin finish over text on a Friday. I'm gonna guess it was a Friday.
I forget where we were.
And I showed up, I was like, hey, why? And he goes, you told me satin. I'm like, yeah. And I wanted to be mad at him for like, you should have known. But in the text, he had recommended not satin. And I said, no, do satin. And he's like, okay. But it like, and that is, it's hard to even say that we scaled back because I don't regret that at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't wish I had plastered those rooms at all. I think they look amazing.
How do you think that this project has changed the way that you think about building homes?
I'm not sure that I have a complete thought there yet. I'd like to think that my thought is this will change the way we run our business and we will do more where we develop these one-off homes and sell them. But until it's sold, like there's kind of a missing piece to this puzzle. In terms of building, it has allowed me to understand, you know, in a much deeper way, just what some of these details really take to execute at the highest level. Certainly learn things that, you know, I mean, there's a handful of things on that project that we can walk around and be like, yeah, this could have been improved. It's great, but like it could have been better if we did this. Or like, hey, next time we do that detail, it's better or more efficient to do it this way.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I just think what it's taught me about building is that when you're building something that is inspirational, it can be inspirational to everyone. And it really opens up these really strong partnerships and collaborations between vendors and trades and builder, and that people really appreciate doing high quality work.
Mm-hmm. So I know you don't have the answers to this at this point, but a decade from now, what do you, in a perfect world, what role do you feel White Oak will play in your career?
A decade from now, I hope to look back at this project and be able to tell a story on this podcast or amongst our peers or inspiring builders that was the project that I put it all on the line and changed the course of my career and allowed us to be in the position as a builder, building the very best projects with the very best people. And it was because we took the risk and just laid it all on the line and said, we're going to do this. We're going to commit to doing it, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. And the big caveat to that is, and document the entire journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had someone on site, and he's part of a very big publication, and he was seeing the project for the first time, and he looked at me and he said, you know, Nick, like, I don't know if there's a better documented build in the world. And I was like, that is a ridiculous statement. And he goes, show me one. He goes, you always see, you know, construction photos, you always see the end result, but like, you guys have documented this to a level that I've never seen. You know, you're professionally photographing the job once a week
For 2 years.
For 2 years. You are professionally videoing the job every week. You're doing sit down interviews with people. You're like, it's literally every step of the way. I just put the book together with all the photos that we have, and every page has, you know, maybe anywhere from 3 to 6 photos on it, and the book is 450 pages long. And that's not, they don't even use all the photos when they put the book together. It's like tens of thousands of photos that we have on that project, and thousands of hours of video.
I think that something that you may, I don't think you've done an amazing job of advocating for with the whole project, and that people should understand is what this project has meant to you personally, the amount of effort that you put into it, and that question, looking back 10 years from now. I think a lot of the stress, a lot of the financial considerations can become dulled to a certain extent. But I think a lot of people who see what you're doing may not have a full understanding, or a comprehensive understanding of everything that you were doing to make this happen on a business level, on a personal level, and just how difficult and how much risk this requires. So I think that anyone who has enjoyed this, who has enjoyed you documenting this process, and being fairly transparent with everything that's going on, and hopping on podcasts and speaking and answering questions, and when things go right and when things go wrong, just need to understand, like, this is a turning point for you, and this has been very challenging. And in order to get to where you want to be sometimes in life, you really do have to put it all on the line, and you have to work really hard to make it happen. And I know that you don't always talk about that, but I at least want to shed a little bit of light on that for the people who are listening, the people who have been following this, that like, yeah, it all looks really cool, but this has been, a very challenging 2 years for you to make this all
Extremely,
happen.
yeah.
This just wasn't like, hey, we got the designer, we got the design, we borrowed some money and put it in place. Like, there's a lot of strings that have to be pulled to make this happen for you. Like, at the end of the day, anyone asks me about it, anyone who sees what's happening and wants my opinion of it, like, to me, this is just you chasing your dreams. No matter what way you slice it, financial, personally, this is you chasing what you want to do in your life. Like, this is that deep down fire that's burning, and it's something that you're not willing to go through life without trying this. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. You're definitely putting your neck out there on the line, and putting a lot at risk, and putting a lot into this. And it's really inspirational to myself and a lot of people. If they really knew what you're going through to make this happen, I think that they probably be more apt to push a little harder themselves.
I got a text from a friend. He was like, "Hey, I want to chat about White Oak." And I said, "What do you want to know?" He goes, "I want to know everything. I want to know how you did it, how you raised the money, like what's it costing you." I was like, "I'm gonna need some time on that.
Yeah.
Let me get through this project, and then I can share a little bit more." But yeah, I mean, it is a very challenging thing, and like you and I, especially offline, have chatted many times, and it's like this is not easy, and whether it's the truth or not the truth, and it's just like me needing to like convince myself what I'm doing is right. It's when it's hard, I just tell myself it's supposed to be like this, and this is the reason people don't do it, rather than look at it as it's hard because I'm doing the wrong thing. It's just hard, and it has pushed me in it has put me in and has pushed me into these areas of stress that I've never once felt before. And in many ways, like, I'm relieved that we're done with construction, but I still have this looming sail over my head, and I fear every night and every day when I wake up that what if I'm not doing it right? What if I don't sell it? What if I'm not marketing it to the right people? What if last night, I was laying in bed. I don't have a hard time sleeping almost ever. And truthfully, I did not have a hard time going to sleep, but it doesn't mean that for about 7 minutes, maybe I will lay there in my thoughts. But I had sat there thinking, like, am I not doing this right? Am I, have I exhausted my network? Have I already introduced it to everyone? Does everyone in the world already know about this project? And quite literally, no one want it. And by the end of my thought, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you haven't reached out to anyone today. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to feel that way. You feel like everyone in the world knows about it. No one knows about it. Sure, 180 people showed up. Okay. How many people are in the US?
Yeah.
It's like, well, not everyone in the US wants that house. Right. But if I'm going to sell this thing, like, I need to be relentlessly asking every single person, because I've proved that makes a difference. I've had a conversation with someone that literally showed up to the house and said, Nick, I want to see the house. I show him the house. Young kid. Show him the whole house. This is the nicest house I've ever seen. Thanks, man. Hey, if you know anyone that might be in the market for something like this, I'd love just an introduction, whether they're looking to buy or not. You know what? I actually do. There's these two guys. One of them collects homes just for the architectural side of it. And I'm like, that's literally my guy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that conversation went to like, hey, he just bought one for $15 million and he's not looking to do that right now again. Okay. But I still follow up and be like, I'd love to still show him the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little hard getting that person's number. But then I'm connected with someone else. And, it was through a DM on Instagram. Come to find out, extremely wealthy individual has been following the build. I say, would you like to come see the house? I'm not interested in buying it. I totally get it. And then by the end of it, he's like, I'm going to tell a couple friends of mine that should come see this house. Great. That's it. I'm not looking for you to make a sale, but that like, it is just that that consistency
Yeah.
that builds the momentum, builds the confidence. And when I lack that consistency, and this is coming off like last week, we went on vacation. I say vacation because it was kind of an annoying vacation in the sense just like very stressful week for me internally. But that was a week of me not doing my normal like reach out and outreach and like connecting with people and getting momentum. And it was like I basically hit the brakes. So Sunday night, I'm freaking out in my head. I'm like, man, like what's going on? Like you check my ChatGPT history. It's like, what if White Oak doesn't sell? Like, will I die? And at the end of the day, it's like, no, you just got to get back in the rhythm, Nick. Like, and today, we got that video on YouTube and then I sent that out and people were like, holy shit, this video is insane. Like, yeah, you want to come see the house? And then this Friday we have 50 architects showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think half a dozen of them are flying from around the country to come see it.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense. You think about it. We often, regardless of what we're looking to do in our lives, we set these goals. And if you are a driven type of person, we tell ourselves that once we've reached that goal, we'll be able to let the gas off and we'll be able to slow down. But if you want to be successful, if you want to push yourself to your limits, you have to realize that it's not getting done the work and then coasting. You can't, like, it's constant maintenance, it's constant evolution, it's constant growing. You can look at it from an athletic perspective, whatever you want to do. Like, this is just part of it. This is part of this. And White Oak was not just about designing the house. It wasn't just about building the house. It's about selling a house too. And it's about the life that comes after this entire experience. And that's all part of it. Like, you can't have one without the other. And, in time, this will all make sense. And I'm sure it's very difficult right now, but you just have to realize that, like, this is what you wanted and this is what you dreamt. And you're in it right now. And like at the end of the day, this is kind of as good as it's going to get. Like, you're doing everything that you want to do and you have the opportunity that a lot of people don't to be able to do this. And yeah, like, you created all that opportunity, but you're still like, you still have opportunity that a lot of people don't. So I think it's all part of it. But yeah, you just got to keep moving forward. Keep the gas pedal on. Once it sells, it's just going to be something else.
Yeah. 100%.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully we answered some questions for our listeners, and then we'll have to do the sequel that we follow up once it sells. We'll probably do it from like Vegas or something like that.
But yeah, why not? My favorite place in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, as always, thanks for being open, honest, transparent. I've seen a lot and experienced a lot of it offline the past couple of years, and I can be the first one to attest that it has not been an easy road for you and everyone else involved. But like, you can't imagine that it ever would have been. So, if you want it easy, you should have built something else.
As I've been told numerous times by many people. But if you want the first dibs on knowing when I sell this, I will exclusively share that with our Modern Craftsman newsletter subscribers. So head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for the newsletter, and the moment I sell it, I will email all of you guys. All it's gonna do is be a sold sign. That's it.
Yeah, and we're giving referrals for anyone who is a lead to selling it.
100%. Oh no. If you are listening to this if you are listening to this podcast right now and you bring a buyer for 45 White Oak and we sell it, I will happily write a nice fat check to you.
You heard it here first.
Email me, nick@nsbuilders.com. We can negotiate what that is. You bring a buyer. And if you want to, and by the way, if you want to check out the project, 45whiteoak.com, or follow us on all of our social media. But yes, absolutely. Make sure you subscribe to the Modern Craftsman newsletter. That's where you're going to hear when it's sold. That's where you're hearing all the behind the scenes stories, the struggles, the issues, the how we did this, the how we do that. And thanks for listening.